Good morning, gang. Happy Saturday morning, March 1st. Spring is getting closer. Let me ask you a question. If your house keeps getting broken into night after night, week after week, somebody's stealing stuff out of your garage or coming into the house, do you expect your friend who lives across town to protect you? To stand guard over your house to make sure it doesn't happen anymore? Or do you do something yourself? Stupid question, right? It's just to kind of put into perspective what happened yesterday in the White House. By now, everybody's heard dribs and drabs about Zelenskyy's embarrassing press conference, if you will, with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. I'm dumbfounded. I mean, to put it mildly, okay? I thank God we have a president and a vice president who has a backbone, who stood up to this Napoleon wannabe, height-wise included. It was unbelievable that Zelenskyy came over and expected security guarantees from the United States that we were going to protect Ukraine from any further Russian invasions, in the future. No, that's your responsibility, just like it's my responsibility to protect my own damn house, okay? The meeting they had yesterday was so insulting and so arrogant on the part of Zelenskyy, it'd make your head spin. This little clown thinks he is some leader of a superpower, that he's the president of the United States, that he's the president of Russia, that he's the president of China or something. He's the president of Ukraine, some little pissant country in Europe that up until a couple of years ago, a lot of people didn't know where it was. Most people called it the Ukraine because they thought it was more like a territory rather than a country. And the country's historically been known as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. This guy's got something like $250 billion from the United States alone, another $125 billion from the rest of Europe, and had the audacity to come into the White House and blame the United States for the war. No, you didn't do shit. You got attacked in 2014 and then again in 2022. And in those 8 years in between, didn't do anything to bolster your defenses against it happening any further. Oh, but we're a poor country. Well, then maybe you shouldn't be a country at all. That's the way I look at it. If you can't defend your borders, hey, Joe Biden, this applied to you too. You don't deserve to be a country. Simply put, the people in the disputed area, for the most part, are ethnic Russians. They all speak Russian, and surprisingly, they want to be Russian. Okay? Now, I'm not going to get into the whole war itself. I want to get into what's going on with us. It was amazing afterwards yesterday, and the lines have been drawn to see what happened. Most Americans, conservatives certainly, the moderates certainly, and even some Democrats, I won't say the liberals, but even some Democrats I saw on social media say, I've supported Ukraine since the beginning of this. After yesterday's sideshow act by Zelenskyy, I can't support Ukraine anymore. Welcome to the party. this is exactly what's going on. All that money we've given to Ukraine, they announced this a couple of weeks ago, there's like $100 billion of it they can't account for. Go look at Zelensky's bank account and all his buddies. You'll find that money pretty quick. Okay. So what happened? Well, afterwards, you had heads of state from all over Europe saying, we stand with Zelenskyy, we stand with Zelenskyy. Good. Stand alone. That's it. Trump needs to cut off Zelenskyy. I mean, I'm still a firm believer in this. You stop sending Zelenskyy money and weapons, that war ends in a week. That's it. Russia takes what they want, they say it's over, and that's it. Okay? Gee, I'm sorry, you couldn't defend your own country? That's your flippin' problem. So all these European countries are saying how they stand behind Zelenskyy. Good. Stand behind Zelenskyy. You start footing the bill for their defense. Gee, maybe you should put Ukraine in NATO after we leave, because we don't need to defend you anymore. NATO should have dissolved in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. Excuse me. We don't need to be funding this. I mean, if you guys have noticed the NATO funding lately, you know, mind you this, it's 2% of GDP. Each country has to... 2% of GDP that each country has to put into the NATO fund. How are they accounting for this? The countries in Europe right now are counting all the money and equipment that they are giving to Ukraine as NATO contributions. Other money they were putting into NATO was the stuff they were getting from USAID, which of course Trump has cut off. So now these 3 countries in 2019 that turned out to be 20 countries in 2023, I think it was, you can expect to see that drop drastically too, because now they can't use the creative accounting to say they're doing something. 2/3 of the money that has gone to defend Ukraine has come from the United States. Yet the Ukrainians are out there screaming they hate America, but have no problem accepting the subsidies to keep their agriculture going. They have no problem with the fact that Americans are paying the pension plans of all these Ukrainians, but they hate America. Fine. You're done. Foreign policy in this one needs to be, you're cut off, we're out, end of story, deal with your own damn problem. Because all these foreign leaders in Europe, you can almost bet they told Zelenskyy what to do. Trump just embarrassed Emmanuel Macron. Trump just embarrassed Keir Starmer coming to the White House. And the socialist, globalist leaders of Europe want to get back at him. They got to bring him down a notch or two. And so they figured, hey, Zelenskyy could go in there, and the United States has been supportive of Ukraine. Zelenskyy can go in and demand stuff from Trump. That went over like a lead balloon. Zelenskyy was as insulting, as arrogant, just as you could imagine. There was one little comment he made when J.D. Vance was speaking. He, under his breath, made a little comment in Ukrainian. Cover your ears if you don't want to hear what he said. But J.D. Vance was dressing him down, and Zelenskyy said in Ukrainian, "Bitch whore." That was what he said. Can you imagine walking into the Oval Office and saying that about a foreign leader, any foreign leader, but in this case, the one that's been feeding your people for 2.5 years? And that was the comment. Trump kicked him out of the White House. I mean, it was funny watching the end when he left. It was some secretary that opened the door for him, basically pushed him out and shut the door. Wasn't to shake hands with Trump and Vance, wasn't even a diplomat. It was some secretary just opened the door for him, he walked out, closed the door. Goodbye, get out. And then Zelenskyy, well, I think we need to start all over, let me come back. And Trump was like, nope. You burned that bridge. And then to go on Bret Baier last night and, oh, gee, thank you to the American people. And then had the audacity. I mean, after all that, had the audacity to say on Bret Baier's interview last night, he didn't think he said anything wrong. Who the F are you? You're a pissant nobody who nobody gives a shit. Your own people don't support you. You canceled your elections because you know you'll lose. One of my predictions at the beginning of the year, if you go back, you'll remember what it is. He's still the one I think it's happening to. Whether it's government sponsored or whether some Ukrainian citizen goes, I'm done. Yeah. Though hitting a target that small, you better be a sharpshooter. But even the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States yesterday during this White House debacle was photographed looking like this, just, oh my God, what is this idiot doing now? They're trying to start, Trump mentioned this 3 times yesterday. Are you trying to start World War III? Yeah, he is. That's exactly what he's trying to do. There's no love lost between Ukrainians and Russians. The leadership of most of Europe still has a Cold War mentality. Hell, the leadership of most of Congress still has a Cold War mentality. The Soviet Union's been gone for over 30 years, guys, okay? The silly part is Russia is more capitalist and Western Europe is more communist than everything was 30 years ago. That's the funny part. And I can say that because I've been to both places. Okay? I've seen it with my own eyes. But Western Europe wants a war. And how stupid could they possibly be to want a war? Right now, Western Europe can't even feed themselves. They can't heat their houses in the winter. They're supporting Ukraine in a war against Russia. But at the same time, buying oil from Russia so they can heat their house or put gas in their car. Okay. So imagine what happens if Zelenskyy and all the other warmongers in Europe decide to go to war against Russia. Russia's not going to say, hey, sure, you know what, we're fighting you, but let us send us oil so you can put fuel in your tanks. That ain't going to happen. You start looking at the Middle East, and the Middle East primarily supports Russia. Okay, can't speak so much about, I don't know, the UAE or whatever. They kind of stay out of politics quite well. But, I don't know, Iran, Saudi Arabia, they're a lot more aligned with Russia than they are with Europe. Remember World War II and why Hitler was so hell-bent on going into this same area in, the Ukraine, southern Russia area. Why he was so hell-bent on going in there. That's where the oil was, and he needed it, and he couldn't get it. And you had German tanks all over the place with no fuel. That's the same scenario that'll play out. That part isn't changed, okay? There all of a sudden isn't great oil deposits found in Berlin. And I hate to tell you this, Western Europe, but solar-powered tanks ain't gonna work. Okay? We have to go green to save the world. Blow me. Okay? We have to get rid of this globalist, socialist bullshit to save the world. My opinion, if China stays out of it and the United States stays out of it, when Zelenskyy and all his buddies in the communist cabal, the dictators in Europe, go to war with Russia, Western Europe will fall in a couple of weeks. Germany doesn't have enough bullets to defend the country for one day. The entire British army, the entire British military, is 70 some odd thousand people. The Russians lost 20 million in World War II and still were the first ones to Berlin. Remember this, if Western Europe does anything stupid, Putin's going to go, London, goodbye. Who's next? Berlin, goodbye. Who wants to be next? It's going to be the same pattern that the United States used to end World War II against Japan. Here, Hiroshima, boom, goodbye. You have 3 days, you have surrender. No, 3 days later. Nagasaki, boom, goodbye. Okay, Japan says, we're done. Same thing's going to happen in Western Europe. It may be a little bit of a ground battle at the beginning, but if the tide turns anyway against Russia for the shortest time, Putin's got no problem pushing a button. And Europe better realize that. And so better the United States. As Trump put it, we have a big, beautiful ocean in between us. Yes, we do. Let them fight their own battles. We got enough problems at home. We need to support our farmers, not the Ukrainian ones. We need to shore up our pension plans, our Social Security, not the Ukrainian ones. That's their problem. You fuck up your country for decades upon decades. You got your freedom 30 years ago and screwed it up. You actually think we're going to have sympathy for you? The support for Ukraine in the United States went way down. Zelenskyy showed himself to be the clown he is yesterday. Trump and Vance showed you the leaders they are and where their priorities are yesterday. Like I said the other day, Zelenskyy wants to trade off these mineral rights to territory he doesn't even control. And then on top of it wants security forces from the United States to protect them. No, we're not putting another DMZ in Europe. Not happening. Zelenskyy is too short-sighted to realize the billions of dollars for those mineral rights the U.S. would have wound up pumping in to Ukraine to build the infrastructure, to train the people, the jobs that they would get, et cetera, et cetera. But not enough of that money was going into his pocket. Zelenskyy was here for one reason yesterday. He expected to go home with another check. He's probably got a mortgage payment due somewhere on some mansion he's got. I hate to tell you there, Volodymyr, the piggy bank is closed. Pinball out.